You may know me, I'm fairly new to our EAA chapter, but today I'm here to talk to you guys about the SCAPA DART organization. So a lot of you guys may know what the SCAPA organization is. That stands for the South County Airport Pilots Association, but not a lot of you guys, I'm guessing, know what the DART is. If I could get like a show of hands, like who here knows what the DART is?
I know a little bit about it.
We got some people, cool. So the DART stands for the Disaster Airlift Response Teams. So who we are, we're a group of volunteer-based pilots who are standing by for if a natural disaster or any other cataclysmic event occurs, then we can fly in and provide aid and support to the affected area. And we specialize in natural disasters that impair regional surface transportation. So this would be if like a mudslide or an earthquake or a flood happened or occurred and it cut off transportation to an area or a town and cars and trucks couldn't get in. So we fly in food and water and medicine, and we'll fly out people who need to get out. So we really got kicked off in 1989 after the Loma Prieta earthquake. Who here remembers that earthquake? Well, a lot of you guys, yeah. So that was a pretty bad earthquake, if you remember. It hit the areas of Watsonville and Santa Cruz especially hard. So areas of Watsonville were totally cut off. They had no way to get in supplies or anything into their town via ground. So kind of an ad hoc group of pilots from the Bay Area decided to fly in along with FEMA personnel and military to deliver aid and support to Watsonville. And over the course of 1 week of flying, just groups of volunteer pilots were able to bring in over 500,000 pounds of food. And so, yeah, this aid, it saved lives. So this thing that these people did, this DART organization, this shows just how good it can be and what a service it can be to the community. So, but unfortunately, the DART wasn't really in place up until 2008 at a SCAPA Board of Directors meeting, where they decided that they wanted to have something like a DART with pilots standing by to help in a natural disaster situation, but they didn't really know how to go about doing this. So after a few years, one of the co-chairs of our organization is a guy named Rod Ferris. He authored a set of guidelines of how to do this. And so in 2011, he brought this up, and after a few more years of refining, by 2013, we had the set Disaster Airlift Response Plan, the DARP. And in 2013, we had our first mobilization exercise, and by 2014, other groups were starting to take notes of what we were doing, and we got very generous funding from multiple organizations that help us continue our organization today. Here we are in 2016, our third mobilization exercise. Our second one was in 2015. Our third one is coming up in October. So we're still going strong, and without further ado, PowerPoint. So here we are, the Disaster Airlift Response Teams. So here's a little bit more about who we are. So we're affiliated with over 46 different pilot associations in California. So really, we are a main part of the California Pilots Association. And as part of this association, we strive for airport preservation, promotion, and protection. And so as part of SCAPA, that's another one of our parent affiliates, as part of SCAPA, we operate as a 501c3. This means that we're a nonprofit organization. We use entirely volunteer pilots, so very little funds are used to, have to initiate this. So I talked to you guys a little bit about the grants. We got those grants from the AOPA Foundation and the Northrop Grumman Institute. And these grants amounted to $15,000, and those grants are helping us go today. So we're very thankful to our sponsors. So I talked to you guys a little bit about the Loma Prieta earthquake. That was really where we kicked off. That was our first event in which volunteer pilots flew in. So that was during the 1989 World Series game. And Watsonville and Santa Cruz, again, were especially hard hit. And no one could get in or out of that town. So here I have a little video explaining what we as volunteer pilots did to aid the situation. Just a short little video.
On Tuesday, October 17, 1989, the Loma Prieta earthquake was felt from Los Angeles to the Oregon border. The cities of Santa Cruz and Watsonville each only about 10 miles from the epicenter, sustained heavy damage as collapsing buildings killed 5 people. The earthquake destroyed 200 homes in Watsonville and damaged another 1,100, leaving over 2,000 people in tent camps and temporary shelters. Highway 17 was blocked by a massive landslide and would not completely reopen for 32 days. A collapsed bridge closed Highway 1 at Struve Slough. Highways 152, 129, and many roads in the Santa Cruz Mountains were also closed, hindering access to the areas which most needed help. And although it could not run its own printing press, a fresh copy of Watsonville's Register Pajaronian newspaper was available the day after the earthquake, October 18th. It had been printed in San Luis Obispo and flown into Watsonville Municipal Airport. In the coming days, all of Santa Cruz County would benefit from the lifeline that Watsonville Airport provided to the outside world. Within 20 hours after the earthquake, military C-130 aircraft delivered a crew of Federal Emergency Management Agency personnel who would inspect and red tag unsafe structures and evaluate the extent of the earthquake damage. Subsequent C-130 flights into Watsonville would deliver emergency supplies and retrieve FEMA personnel. California Department of Forestry helicopters used the airport as they battled several fires started by the earthquake. Army Red Cross helicopters were based at the airport, ready to evacuate earthquake victims. The Navy also flew in 2 Black Hawk helicopters carrying several tons of emergency relief supplies. To prevent further shaking of unstable buildings, the airport traffic pattern was changed to keep flights of these helicopters and all other aircraft away from the city of Watsonville. The terminal at Watsonville Airport became the staging area for FEMA workers, military officials, and medical personnel. State and federal officials also arrived by air, and the media followed. While the Federal Aviation Administration closed off Watsonville Airport to all flights except those delivering emergency relief, most incoming flights were still made in privately owned aircraft. Pilots from all around the Bay Area volunteered to deliver donated supplies to Watsonville residents in need. On Thursday, October 19th, the Food Bank of Contra Costa County asked Linda Meloche at Buchanan Field in Concord if several tons of food could be delivered to Watsonville by air. Calling on volunteer pilots, Linda organized an airlift that delivered 40,000 pounds of food in 100 flights by early Friday afternoon. Bill Dunn and John McAvoy organized an airlift from Reed Hillview Airport that began Saturday, October 21st. By Sunday evening, Reed Hillview pilots had conducted 300 flights using 80 aircraft, transporting 250,000 pounds of much-needed food, water, clothing, and camping equipment to Watsonville. Everything had been donated, including the supplies, planes, and fuel. Similar airlifts were organized out of other airports. Hamilton Army Airfield pilots flew in 28,000 pounds of supplies in less than 2 hours using 50 aircraft. Pilots from Half Moon Bay and San Carlos also participated in the airlift, delivering thousands of pounds of supplies to Watsonville. In the days following the earthquake, the tarmac at Watsonville Airport was crowded with unloading aircraft. There was so much air traffic that the FAA brought in a temporary air traffic control tower. The California Conservation Corps provided help moving the incoming supplies as 5 hangars were filled with goods destined for local disaster relief organizations. Ultimately, over 1,000 airlift flights delivered 500,000 pounds of emergency supplies to the Second Harvest Food Bank alone. Watsonville Airport provided speedy access to the county hardest hit by the Loma Prieta earthquake. And when Watsonville needed it most, hundreds of Bay Area volunteer pilots flew in emergency supplies.
So there you can see a little bit of what the DART does. So what are we triggered by? What puts us into action? So any disastrous event that will cut off regional ground transportation. But one key thing that absolutely needs to be there is that the airspace has to be operational. So that's kind of the trick of it, is that if you have an earthquake, it has to cut off all that regional ground transportation, but it has to leave the airport unharmed, because we can't have our volunteer pilots flying into unsafe conditions. So the airspace system has to be operational, but the good side of the DART is that we use all volunteer pilot and aircraft, so this greatly limits expenses. And because we use all volunteers, we are able to provide free emergency care, which is a huge help to people in affected areas. Okay. So if you're flying for a DART, the things that are most needed is really just your support as a pilot, as well as the supplies that you're bringing in. Mostly that would be food. That is what we need the most. Out of all the different things, food is really, that's what we need. Another thing that kind of goes a little undervalued is reconnaissance, is that it's very helpful to have pilots flying around an area to see what roads are closed or what blockages there may be. Because without that, then we don't have any coordination. And so when we have people flying over these areas looking at like what the damage is exactly, then we can get a much better picture of what's going on. So reconnaissance is another big thing that DART pilots do. Why organize a DART? So, you know, the go-to, you know, key thing would be safety for people. Is that we save lives with our organization. We can come in and we can really help communities. It gives a faster spool up of service. We've got better security for goods and passengers and volunteer. We can bring in mutual aid from other organizations. We make that easier to connect with. It's a set organization where, you know, oftentimes a lot of people, they hear about a natural disaster and they really want to help, but they don't really know how. So this is one way where pilots can really help their communities in the events of disasters. And so really the message that, you know, is hammered home with the DART is better safety. But there are secondary benefits. And, you know, these include things like pilot enjoyment. You know, you like to fly your airplane, so why not fly your airplane and help people at the same time? Community enjoyment, we've got our annual mobilization exercises. These are really fun, really great ways to connect with the community. There's lunch, so that's all great. Also, one thing that a lot of you are probably very well aware of is that many airports are at risk, and they need funding, and they need awareness to be raised of them. And this is one great way to get their names out into the community. So, Cal Pilots, our kind of cradle organization, they want DARTs statewide. And this would just really provide a better safety network. So, starting a DART at our airport, potentially, or if you guys come from different areas with different airports and you're part of a different EAA chapter, starting a DART at your airport. So really the most important thing is to identify someone to take charge on that. Identify someone to really push that forward and to do all the communications and all the necessary requirements. One thing, you do need to identify or start sponsoring a Cal Pilots chapter. But that's not that difficult. You need to have your annual mobilization exercises. Those started back in 2013. We had one in 2015, and we're going to have one again this year, 2016. Another thing, you got to publicize it with the newspaper, with newsletters, with the websites. Get the word out. Get the community involved. So that's one big thing, is community involvement for the DARTs. Also, be ready in the emergency. After the disaster hits, the coordinators need to be able to call up their pilots and say, hey, there's been a flood in Santa Cruz. We need to get people down to that airport and start providing aid, and the pilots can get right on that. So we need to be ready in that emergency. And I know that our EAA chapter is really big on Young Eagles. It really isn't that much different than organizing Young Eagles. Right here I've got some materials that will help us start a DART if we so choose, or if you guys are interested in doing that at your guys' airports, here's some materials to help you. If you go to that website up there, calpilots.org, you click on the DART on the right-hand side of the page, and under the Airport Advocate, there's a bunch of materials that you can download that will be really helpful in setting up the DART. There's the Disaster Airlift Response Plan, the full set of sample forms, sample handouts, the overview for starting a DART, and this one down here, this is Seaplane specific. Do I have any seaplanes in the room? Cool. We can kind of skip over that one then. This is a picture of what those guidelines would look like. This is a table of contents. This would be what you would expect to look at if you were to go to the website. Here I have kind of a a chart showing the hierarchy of the DART organization model. So up here at the top, we've got our DART co-chairs. They do DART work all throughout the years. And this includes Rod Ferris, that guy I mentioned earlier. He was the one that drafted the plans for the DART. And then this other guy named Paul Marshall. He's the reason I got involved in this. I saw a presentation by him in Sacramento, and I went up to him and I said, hey, how can I get involved in this? And he told me, and now I'm working as liaison to him for these EAA chapters. And Paul is a really great guy. I hope you guys get a chance to meet him. Underneath that, we've got the operations director. They and all these guys down here, they do work just on the day of the mobilization exercise. So the operations director, he kind of organizes all of these people down below him into what they need to be doing for that mobilization exercise. So we've got things like the volunteer manager, the ramp manager, the material manager, and then right under these managers, we've got just the general staff of people who want to go in and help. And again, we've got a mobilization exercise coming up, I think it's October 1st. So if anyone wants to get involved in that, I've got the details. Just come see me after the presentation, and you guys can meet all these people. So here I've got just an overview of the DART mobilization steps. So first, a natural disaster occurs. The service availability communicated to disaster officials. We ring them up and say, hey, this is the nut tree DART. We're ready to be put in service. The mobilization messages are sent to the pilots who will be flying for those DARTs. The DART management teams are assigned, those kind of third rung on that hierarchy that you guys just saw. DART manager binders remind those managers what they do. Then one thing that's very important is that the DART in service kind of goes out. That means that we're no longer, just in our practice phases, or we're not dormant. We are now in service, serving our community. Also, mutual aid is called upon as needed from different organizations from the community, as well as military and FEMA. These are the flight operations parameters. If you guys are interested, I can go back to that. Right now, I'll just keep going. These are important. These are operations not flown. Above all, top of the list for me is we're all volunteer pilots. So if it's not in their comfort range, we don't make them do it. And that's really what we have to stress, is if they do not feel comfortable doing the mission that is assigned to them, they do not do that mission in respects of safety. We don't do air ambulance. If someone is in desperate medical condition, we cannot fly them out. That's one thing. We also don't do helicopter winch rescue. We're not going to be dropping chains in and raising people up from destroyed buildings. So safety and risk management. Again, this is just a little more about safety and the flight parameters and stuff like that. So if you guys have any questions at the end, we can come back to these slides. So here's a picture from our last readiness exercise. So the readiness exercises, they build proficiency, efficiency, and really they promote a lot of safety. So another aspect of these readiness exercises is that you get to know your emergency workers. But really, a big part of these exercises is that you have fun doing them. They're really fun. They're a great way to get involved with the community. You go out for a day, you see all your friends, you get to fly some airplanes, and also you get to help out the community with the food that you bring in for that mobilization exercise. I've got some more on that in the next slide. Here we go. So this was our 2015 exercise. So our points of emphasis was involving lots of pilots, bringing in mutual aid, and we really focused on food transport, especially. We did try experimenting with hospital transport, but as we operate right now, under our parameters, we do not do air ambulance, just again. So during our mobilization exercise, we requested 1 to 100 pounds of food from each participant, and that food was used to feed St. Joseph's Family Center for 1 day. And we figured that if we could feed this family center for 1 day, we could feed a community in disaster for a week if need be. So now I've got just some pictures of the last mobilization exercise. This is the operations area. We've got the tarmac, we've got parking on the fields. the DART service check-in area. All right, and it'll be different for every DART. That's the important thing. This was just at the airport that it was at before. It's based, the mobilization exercises are based out of San Martin Airport. So this right there, that's a tent that can withstand lots of wind and rain and stuff like that. We pull that out every mobilization exercise. That kind of operates as our headquarters. Here we've got some kind volunteers coming in to help for the day. These were those binders I was talking about. They tell what each of those managers, exactly what they need to be doing, how they need to be doing it, and when they need to be doing it. Here we've got another volunteer. Some more just volunteer pilots. That's all we are. Lots of volunteers come in for these mobilization exercises. Here they're kind of getting, they're having a meeting. This guy right here, right there. See, he's got the hat and the glasses and the little beard. That's Paul Marshal. He's one of our co-chairs. Again, really great guy. I hope you guys get to meet him. He's one of the guys. He got in with Rod Ferris, and he made this organization happen. So we do have a lot to thank for him. This is just one of the packages of food, that what it might look like when we're flying it into areas in need. It just shows what it is, what's in it, stuff like that. Another volunteer. We had members of the Air Squadron come in 2015. They helped out. Just really, it's an outreach to all of the community. So all aspects of the community and all members of the community come in to help for our mobilization exercises. Here, this is where, these are our flight areas. So you can see we kind of flew all throughout California in 2015, and we even flew as high up as northern Washington, nonstop. So that was for our DART exercise. Again, some more happy volunteers. And then again, these last two slides are very Seaplane specific. This is our Seaplane response plan. And again, we have float planes ready to fly. That's another part of our DART, is that if there's a disaster where we can aid using seaplanes, we've got them standing by. Yeah, so start a DART. Give back to your community. I'd like to see one start here at Metri. That would be pretty cool. If you guys have any questions at all, come see me after this performance. If I can't answer them, then that is the email for Paul Marshal, our co-chair. Yeah, thank you very much.
I've been in touch with Paul, and that's a really good idea. I think you did job, bud. Get one start, and I'd like to, letter of appreciation for you and everything, and I want to thank you for everything. Very informative.
Thank you.
And I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you all.